All right, welcome to the Quest Culture Podcast, your place for all things fantasy, sci-fi, horror, action. We do a little pop culture too, and today we're going to be talking about our favorite books. So we are here with your favorite Quest Culture podcasters. We have Dana Deet right here to my left. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
Last time we were here, we were going into the throes of winter.
We were.
There was a lot of things.
There was a lot of things.
Right?
Winter has come.
Right?
Right, exactly.
And
GOT people there.
exactly. And of course, we have Professor, my cousin Sheldon Applewhite here.
Hey guys.
How you doing?
I'm good.
How you feeling?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited about today. We're gonna be talking about our favorite books, and to that end, we have a guest, right?
We do have a guest, and I'm very excited to have him here. We are very excited to have him here. One of the things we all love books. We're big readers.
Yes.
And so when I found out about our friend Doug Jones and his book, let's give him a hand.
Thank you for having me.
When I found out that he was publishing his first novel, I thought it was fitting that he'd come on the show. And I sort of reached out to him on Facebook. I was like, hey, you got to come on our show. And he was like, yeah, of course. We talked about it.
Oh man.
We met up. He told me about the book, and we went from there, and he's here. So thank you for being here.
Appreciate
Thanks for being here.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
I told you guys just now, I've enjoyed watching the episodes that you sent me, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm very excited about the book as well.
So I thought we would start with you telling us your journey to be to publish your first novel. You and I met in January, and we kind of did we're friends. We have friends that are we
have mutual friends.
Yeah, we have mutual friends.
I think we're friends too.
We're friends too. Yeah, right. We spent time together. I think I've been to his home and stuff like that. But we haven't seen
you're
each other.
definitely friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
We haven't seen each other in a while,
Okay.
and so
Super.
reacquainting our friendship.
Yeah.
But
Nice.
we met in January, and Doug told me his journey to becoming a first-time novelist, and so I thought you might want to share that with the audience. And,
Sure. I think what I said was it was 30 years to be an overnight success.
Yeah.
Right. So this started in grad school. Parts of the book started in grad school, and I went to Columbia for my MFA, and finished in '98. Thought I had written my great African-American gay novel that the world was just waiting for. Unfortunately, publishing thought very different.
and tell us why, because at that time, '98, there were a few authors that were on the scene. Elan Harris,
James Earl Hardy.
James Earl Hardy,
Right.
Very popular.
Yeah.
Very popular.
Right. So it would seem like it was apropos for you, like your book, to be amongst those.
I thought so too, but they were writing for particular audiences. Elan's books were mostly for Black women. He was talking a lot about the DL culture. There was a lot of hysteria around that.
Yes.
At that time, HIV and AIDS was really dominating. It was actually, I would say, was coming to fore in the Black community. And so his books were kind of peekaboo into what was happening. I would say also he was talking not a little, but he was talking a lot about, gay things, but it really was bisexuality.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
James Earl Hardy was talking, I guess he was also talking about gay culture and everything else, but it was from a completely different standpoint, I think.
More
DL thugs.
More of a thug kind of.
Homo thugs.
Very, very New York.
Or homo thugs.
Yeah, very New York.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very ethnic, right? Like Caribbean. Caribbean characters, and kind of pulling out some of those things.
Yep. And so what my editor explained to me now about back then, and what a lot of editors, all 9, 10 of the Black editors that were in publishing back then, said was that there was no market for, or they didn't understand the market for literary Black gay novel.
Okay.
And if you, the successes of, we know them, of other countries, of Brother to Brother, of In the Life, that came out from Allison Press.
Yeah, I think you might have to explain to the audience, for those who don't know.
Oh, those are anthologies written by Black gay men, Essex Hemphill, Joseph Beam, folks like that. And they were cult hits,
right?
And they found lodging in the consciousness of Black gay men, I would say across America.
Yeah,
definitely here in the tri-state area.
Right.
But they weren't quote unquote popular bestsellers.
Right. So maybe we should talk about things like Black is, Black ain't, right?
Mm-hmm.
These things that really sort of highlighted the lived experience of Black gay men.
Yeah.
Right? So
and I was that was the theme that I was writing into. And because publishing really didn't see that, didn't understand that, the whole infrastructure around how to promote and how to find those audiences. I mean, it was a very granular sort of thing, grassroots, word of mouth that happened all the time. And that's how those books took off. And I think any of those books could be a hit today. I mean, if a publisher wanted to take those on and reissue those, I think a lot of the themes that were talked about then are still relevant today. And I think it would be amazing. And a lot of those writers died from AIDS.
Yeah.
So they took that work with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, okay, so you start writing.
Yeah.
You work with people in the industry to try to get your book published.
I had an
They tell
agent.
you there's no niche for you, or this is a micro niche, or whatever language they use. What happens then?
I boohooed myself to sleep at night. And I got up and I went to work. I figured out, how to make a living.
What were you doing at the time?
Say it again.
What were you doing at the time?
At that time, I had started that was not-for-profit housing. I was working for Neighborhood Housing Services that I told you about.
Yeah.
There was an office in East Flatbush. And so I worked there for a while. And then I worked at the Bed-Stuy office for a little while. And then I went into economic development. Didn't really know what economic development was, but the head of the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce came and he got me, Ken Adams.
Okay.
He's the president of LaGuardia, I think it is now.
Community.
Yeah. He introduced him to that whole world, and it was incredible, and it was
Sure, absolutely.
And I worked in economic development for a while, and that's a lot of what informs what's happening in the book.
The Cornelius.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Just that intersection of politics and community, and what happens, people getting taken advantage of, and then from there, I should say parallel to that, I kept writing. I kept looking for an agent. I left my first agent, started looking for another one and everything else. I eventually got with a second agent who sent out what was my work at that time. It still didn't take off, and it wasn't ready. And how I finally got to where I am now, Columbia was saying, graduate, let's fast forward, 2017, I decided I'm tired of New York. And I moved to Atlanta, and I'm still writing. I'm getting these solicitations from Columbia because, they're always asking for money.
I bet you they are now, aren't they? They're asking for some money right now. $400 million.
Well, they reversed that.
Oh, okay.
Did they reverse? I didn't know that.
You didn't hear about that?
They kissed the ring.
Yes, I did hear about that. Yes,
Okay.
but anyway,
They kissed the ring. We should
kissed
talk
the
about
ring.
it.
I didn't know if we could talk about it, but maybe
So I opened one of the solicitations. I was just like, I paid you your goddamn money, so stop sending me these. So I opened one of them, and it was an agent mixer.
Okay.
If you have a novel, if you are an alum, if you are a graduating student with, some finished work, come and meet these agents. We're inviting agents from all over the city. And I was like, should I go? And I was ignoring it. This was the fall of 2019.
Okay.
And I was just like, whatever. I just kept ignoring it. In January, another one came, and I had to be in New York anyway. This was going to happen in February, right before the pandemic. That's why it's so clear in my mind. So I was like, well, maybe I should go. Maybe I should go and see. what's going on here? And I decided to take a trip. I had to be in New York for some other stuff. I came up. I went to the mixer. They tell you all sorts of things, how to pitch your book and everything else. My pitch was Moonlight meets Brokeback Mountain, right? And so the agent who I ended up talking to, there were a bunch of us. It's Colombia, right? So the food and the liquor are off the chain.
It is hot.
Right?
Okay.
We were
Fire.
drinking and eating. The agents were on the other side of the room. We were not interested in talking to, the frightening big bad agents over there. And one of them wandered over, Haley Heidman, who's my agent at William Morris. She wandered over to us and she was like, "Y'all are having too much fun over here. Somebody pitch me." And because everybody loved my pitch, they kind of thrust me forward. And I told her, she loved it. I sent her the first 50 pages as soon as I got home. And within 3 days, she called me back, told me to send it to the rest of her.
That's amazing.
And it's history.
Yeah. Listen, if that is not the epitome of a New York story, then I don't know.
That is a New York
story that will pull generations in. So what I love about your story and your journey as well, because we're around the same age.
Yeah.
And a couple of months ago, we had on a young person who is an artist, and I think the common connection also with you, Brendan, is like holding on to your dreams and not letting go of them.
Not letting go, yeah.
And so I think your story is remarkable for that reason, right? And I think it will resonate with so many other people who may be somewhere on their journey and considering, letting it go. I mean, it's
that's why I was asking what you were doing at the time.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious about because you're saying that we wanted to bring our dreams and hold on to our dreams, but for me, sometimes it's my dream that won't let me go, right? So
I love that.
I was wondering, like, while you were working in these other fields, it was interesting to me that you said you kept writing, right? And said you were looking for an agent. So I was curious, like, why were you trying to write books, or you were just writing as a form of expression, just to kind of, for therapy, for understanding, your surroundings, or were you writing purposely to try to write that next great American Black gay novel?
Yeah, I was working on that, and I was informing and infusing my work with my experience. And I would take feedback that, I got beautiful rejection letters. I mean, they were like, a couple of people told me, they were like, this is not the one, but keep writing, and this is what we didn't like. They were almost editorial letters and everything else, and so I was able to take them and craft them and be like, okay.
So they were instructive.
Yeah, they were very instructive. I keep hitting this thing. They were very instructive. And I think criticism is only bad if you let it destroy you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And if someone is someone saying something overwhelmingly negative, kind of just throw it out. But if there is a drumbeat of similar things, you kind of take those and incorporate that into what you're doing. And I think also for fiction writers, and probably for writers just in general, I think your writing has to be infused with some sort of experience.
Yeah.
Not that there aren't 21-year-olds and 19-year-olds and everything else who can't write great books. They certainly have had certain experiences.
Sure.
But I think the book at 21 by a writer is different from the book from that same writer at 50. At 55, at 56.
Is that what you think was the I don't want to say issue, but opportunity when you originally thought you had written that book that you were aspiring to write, and you presented it to the agents, and you thought that was going to be the one? Was that what you were feeling?
I think some of it was I was a young writer.
Yeah,
I was learning my craft. I was learning the experience of the characters. I was learning who the characters were. I was learning life also. I think I had to get out and live a little.
Yeah.
My father, who the book is dedicated to, we were talking one time, and I mean, if the late 90s, right? At that time, you talk about, Black writers who were dominating the bestseller list. It was Toni Morrison, it was Terry McMillan, it was Alice Walker, right? Like at some, it was
Right.
there were others, but those were like the
big
dominant ones, right?
BB,
Moore Campbell, Bernice,
Campbell, yeah.
Connie Briscoe. And so I remember I was talking to my parents. I was frustrated. You know, the writing wasn't taking off, and you know, and I said to my father, I was like, you know, where are our modern day Baldwins and Richard Wrights and Langston Hughes? And my father was like, he's at the tip of your pen.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Which I saw that an acknowledgement, and I love that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I was just like, and it made me stop. And
What did that feel like to have your father
felt
essentially
incredible.
pass that on to you?
it felt incredible. It felt embracing. And my father was not down with my sexuality.
Yeah.
But he was down with the fact that I have something to say.
Yeah.
And you need whatever it is going to say, you need to say it, and it needs to be. It damn sure better be good.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And that it felt incredible,
Yeah.
and it made me stop. It made me, you know, like.
I know you saying he wasn't down with your sexuality, but was it freeing nonetheless to have him say, you know,
It was.
you go
It
make
was.
your heroes.
He read early drafts of
I love that.
He read early drafts of what I was writing then,
Yeah.
and he would ask me questions, and he would tell me.
Oh, that's so cool.
You
love
know,
that,
he
yeah.
would tell me like I didn't understand that character, and I don't understand why this character makes the choices that he makes
Wow.
given the history that he
So
has.
he was invested in
That must have been very cathartic for you.
So was
Had
your
to be.
dad an avid reader?
Oh yeah,
Was
Oh,
he a
yes.
creator as well?
he was not. My father was an IT person, but he had,
Okay.
he had
Wow.
an extensive library.
Yeah.
Ben Buchanan.
Yeah.
You know, he read Invisible Life. You know, he had a library,
Wow.
and it was one of he didn't complete it, but he said when he retired, he was like, I'm going to read every book in my library.
That is
Nice.
amazing.
Everything else, yeah.
You said something that was really stood out to me, and I think this is so important maybe to think about, is like that criticism can destroy you. I know when I was young in my career as a young, PhD, just starting out, and we'd have to write, submit articles and stuff like that, manuscripts, and I would get feedback that was devastating.
Yeah.
It and potentially could have destroyed me.
Right.
I wasn't in the academy, and I was trying to figure out how to get back there. And then you submit papers, you already feel like a failure because and then you get this criticism. So I think I have the answer to my question. And, it sounds like, and for many of us, like to get that support that you need to keep you moving forward, I think is like so extraordinary.
That is the number one thing, and
Especially for black and brown people. I think,
it really is.
right?
I went to Columbia because I didn't know anything else. Right. My undergraduate degree is in banking and finance. I went to Morehouse, and I started working in finance and everything else.
Shout out to Morehouse.
Shout out to Morehouse. Got to hit the tone.
Yeah.
And I remember I was looking at a blue screen. I was doing a credit review. And I was writing up on this company. I was looking at a blue screen, and I felt it in my toes. I was like, this cannot be my effing life.
I had those moments.
I was like, this can't be it. And I applied to Columbia on that. And I was like, and I remember my prayer was, God, if I get in, I'm going to go. And if I don't, you're going to help me figure out what it is that I'm supposed to do. I say that to say it's great to go to a school like Columbia if that's what you want to do. But understand the amount of debt and the amount of time. And also, to your point about critique, people, I didn't know. I thought I was going to go to Columbia and we were going to all sit in the grass and hold hands.
Yeah.
And
Have like a Coca-Cola moment.
and
I love
go, and we're going to talk about each other's work, and we're going to be so supportive. And when I tell you
Cutthroat. Yeah.
right? Hyper competitive.
Yeah.
Extremely unpleasant. I don't know how it is now, but it was,
Yeah.
and I was like, whoa.
Well, we talked about this as well, because I told you, I think we have a very similar journey. And I went back to school around 2002. I went back, right? 2001, I was a middle school teacher, and I said the same thing. I was like, I want to go to Howard. If I don't get in, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, right? But I was prepared. I was ready. And so for similar reasons, but I went to get that reinforcement, that critique, that critical voice, but from people who looked like me and shared some of my lived experiences. And I was very mindful of it. Two of my professors were from Howard. So I understand that. And I think it's an important thing to point out how where we are and when we are at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
How it's so critical, right?
Yeah, it is. And, you know, again, if you want to go to a place like Columbia, Iowa's Workshop, you know, if you want to go to these places, understand the environment and understand what you're going into, but also understand your work and have people around you that are going to embrace you. And then I'm talking about you as a person of color.
Yes.
As something that is can we say this? I'm trying to, non-mainstream, not typical, something that is someone who is atypical and everything else. Understand that I don't endorse that everyone has to go and get an MFA to be a writer. And you certainly don't have to go spend $60,000 a year to do it. You know, if you need to, you can go to Brooklyn College. Right. You know, and just, I mean, the program there is just as fabulous. Right. And I think Robert Jones is teaching there, right? Yeah. You know, so fabulous, you know, teacher and everything else.
Would you say that as a person of color, you would highly recommend it though? To go anywhere formal, to learn?
I know, and thank you for asking that, Brendan, because my point was, what you need is someone, a mentor,
to support
someone who loves your work.
Yes,
who not only loves your work but loves you also.
Wherever you go.
Yeah,
whatever race or ethnicity, they gotta love you and love your work and want to support you.
And is ready to dig in with you and help you with your analysis and growing your work.
Yeah.
And everything else. And just ready to pull apart that work. My editor, Yadan Israel, the first 3 or 4 months of us working together, I was like, I feel like Columbia should reimburse you the tuition that I paid them. Yeah. I mean, he's a young brother. I know he's not 40.
Okay. Young editor.
Brilliant.
You got to shout him out.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, when I tell you he helped me pull this book apart and put it back together and dig, and just asking questions from different angles. You know, he really challenged me. The book, as it's written now, it's written all in third person. When I first submitted it, it was written in two perspectives, in first person, and it alternated between first person and third person and everything else. And we talked about, you know, how the different voices give not only the character, illuminate certain things of the character, but it also illuminates the reader. It also helps the reader and the reader's inquiry into the work as well. And just talking about those different things. And I don't want to dog Columbia, because I did go there, and it was a good experience, and it helped me to make me a better writer. But that is not the only way to do it. I will tell young writers, not even young writers, I will tell emerging writers, you know, that is not the only way to do it. You do not need to go into a mountain of debt to perfect your craft.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's
I was gonna, I'm sorry. So that was one of my main questions I was gonna ask you, since this was written so long ago, when you clearly had to do a lot of re-editing, but when you were reading it, did it seem like the same person you were like 30 years ago when you wrote it? Like, did you?
Well, actually, the parts of it that were written a while ago, and some of those parts stayed, but then there are parts of it that just evolved or got thrown out, and it was replaced with other things.
Okay.
You know, and so I kept the book kept growing and kept evolving. It kept coming different, and that's what I was saying. As I kind of evolved, as my experience.
Let's talk a little bit about the book.
Sure.
The name of the book is The Fantasy of Future Things.
The Fantasies of Things, yes.
Tell us a little bit about the book, and then We'll ask you some questions about. But we all read it, and so
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's set in Atlanta in the early 1990s, about the time that the Olympics were announced, that Atlanta would be hosting the 1996 Olympics. And the two characters, Jacob and Daniel, are working for a small real estate development company that is targeting the neighborhood of Summerhill to redevelop that into Olympic Village.
Yes.
And that involves displacement
Yeah.
of families who had been living there.
Yeah.
The Summerhill of today is not the Summerhill of yesterdecade.
For the same reasons that you wrote about in the book?
For some of those reasons, yes. But I mean, just the evolution, redevelopment, the way gentrification works, all those things,
Yeah.
and everything else. And so these two characters, even though it's fiction, it is based kind of in some of the historical stuff that happened in Summerhill.
Yeah.
And so these two characters have to decide whether or not they're going to challenge the system and what's going on, and how they can do that, as two, entry-level grunts.
Yes.
If they have the power to do that, or if they're just going to fold under it.
Yeah. When I first started reading the book, I think I texted you one night and I said, this book feels like an old friend. And I said that because what you write about in terms of like Atlanta reminded me very much of like Brooklyn around the same time. I moved back to New York from grad school in 1997. And to me, I think of it sometimes as the golden age of Brooklyn, but like a lot of things that you talk about in the book that happened in Atlanta were happening in Brooklyn, right? And so I guess maybe if you could talk a little bit about that, like how that informed your experience, because you were here around the same time as well.
Yeah. I wanted Atlanta to be very much a character.
Yeah, I thought it was a
book.
character as well, yeah.
I wanted the reader, particularly because, we are of a certain generation.
Yes, yes.
And you can't talk about the 90s and not have certain, you have to talk about Loretta's. You need to talk about
Right.
Racks. You need to
Right.
what it was like navigating the streets.
But also the Brooklyn places you mentioned too,
Starlight.
Yeah.
right?
Stay-
Right.
My
Do you know
friend
about
and
Starlight?
I do. My friend and neighbor was a bartender. His name is Albert. Hi, Albert. He was a bartender there for years. So yes, I absolutely know that.
I had a cousin. He's not here anymore. I was partying at Starlight one day, and I looked up into the DJ booth. He was a fantastic DJ, and we were just gigging. We were going at it. We were on the little. Starlight was is maybe as big as this room.
if it's-
Exactly.
yeah. There's-
If.
yeah.
And everybody's packed like this, and you trying to figure out how to dance or whatever else. And I looked up, and I was like, that looks like my cousin. In the
Wow.
DJ booth.
Yeah.
And everything else. And, eventually he came out of the DJ booth and he saw me, I saw him, we spoke. Never came up with family. And I was like, as far as I knew, my cousin was heterosexual.
Okay.
But Starlight is one of those places,
I think everybody, New York was a special thing at that time, right? I'm not saying
Brooklyn,
that
it was, yeah.
like primarily like it was for, Black queer folk, right? But I think you could find yourself in a lot of places in New York in 1997 to 2000. I found myself in,
the South Portland.
right?
Club.
Yeah, like, with different scenes
Yeah,
and different people just
Yeah.
vibing. That's,
Yeah.
for me, I felt like it was like the golden age. Like the club scene, the going out scene was like
Absolutely.
live.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
shortly, about 2005, 2006, it died.
Right.
So,
It was killed.
Around the time they blasted the West Side Highway.
that's right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So,
Why for our listeners? Why do you feel like this is a universal tale?
Do I feel like
Do you feel like this is a universal tale that anyone who picks it up will be able to step into,
You mean regardless of sexuality?
regardless of sexuality, background?
I think the themes in it definitely are universal. That folks can identify with that sort of struggle, the quest for love,
Yeah.
the quest for community.
yeah.
Daniel's struggle. Daniel's mother.
Going out in the world, I think, right?
Yeah, the things that people are, particularly now, what we're encountering and everything else. I think it's extremely universal. And that was another, regardless of where how people identified or where they came from or how they came to the book, and what their background was. I wanted them to be able to be like, I understand who these characters are. I understand who these people are.
The book felt a little bit like Disapearing Acts by Terry McMillan. I'm not sure if
really?
you've ever read that before.
I haven't.
Have any of you read it? It had the same kind of, you have.
Yeah.
It reminded me, there were elements of it that reminded me of Disappearing Acts, which is, to me, is one of my favorite Terry McMillan books. Like the way that they have two characters
Okay.
who are involved with each other.
I see what you're saying.
Who like end up not working out in the end because of all of the.
Oh, are you saying too much?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because of
It's a
all
little discovery.
because of the baggage that they are carrying.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think we do see the journey of two characters who intersect. Right. We don't know what the outcome of that intersection is, but they affect each other. And I also think that with Disappearing Acts, as I see with your book, is the effects of gentrification and a changing community, right? I think
Okay,
that was
that's
very
interesting.
present.
I see why you're saying
Yeah.
that there's similar.
Yeah.
I get it now.
Talk about some of the, we've talked about some of them, right? We talked about gentrification. We talked about how major projects can shape, an area. We have the Barclay Center, right? And around 2006, we saw the similar process happening with the Barclay Center and Ratner and eminent domain and so forth and so forth. So, can you talk about some of the other themes that are like present in the book that might speak to audiences?
Politics, the way politics works and moves, the intersection of politics and business, which is what economic development is, right? And how it can move and shape communities and how it impacts life.
Yes.
The fact that Daniel's mother's story, just her everyday struggle with just life.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I think we all were. We talked about this a little before we started. We were curious about the character of Daniel. Tell us a little bit about the character development with Daniel. And I believe I know the theme you were trying to create with his mother, but maybe you can talk about it a little bit without revealing too much about the book.
Well, I wanted to talk about the commonality of experience that we all have, regardless of color.
Yeah.
That experiences around poverty?
Experiences around, not even around poverty so much as struggle, and dealing with opportunity and lost opportunity, and how that impacts our life and our forward-moving momentum.
And you could feel that in her.
Yeah.
It was very evident. Right?
Yeah,
That
just
struggle.
behind the 8 ball all the time, no matter what happened. But still not giving up, giving that thirst to her children.
Yeah.
And giving that opportunity to her children.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to our own.
Yeah,
books
we
we're
are. We
reading,
will.
But you just for something I'm reading, I just want to ask a question. The time period you picked to tell this story and the mother's journey in that time period. Do you feel like that is that hope that she wanted to pass down, that drive, that want to own and live your experience? Do you think that is something that is lost now in terms of getting that kind of motivation from circles you're in?
That's an interesting question, because part of the answer to that question says that now, compared to 30 years ago, the issues around sexuality and identity are quote unquote gone.
Yeah.
Right?
I was going to ask you about that too.
Right?
Yeah.
Supposedly they're gone.
Yeah.
Even though there are families with children, with family members who are like, I don't want to hear about
Yeah.
that, right? At all, period. And so whatever the momentum that's happening in society is one thing. The momentum that's happening in the family is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And so how does one navigate that? And what is, go ahead.
Yeah, I think people talk about social change as if it's like one directional and that it's always changing and progressive, but like that's not necessary. It can be reversed, right? For some places and some communities, some social institutions, there is no movement.
Right.
Like if you come from, maybe a Caribbean family or, an Orthodox Jewish family, there is no movement around like, norms or values around certain things, right? Like, and so I do find that, for me, to the question that Brendan asked, the one thing I thought about is, how do you think this will, how do you think millennials and Gen Zers will receive this book? Because I do think that the themes are universal. I don't think that things have changed as much as people think they are.
I don't think so. I think if you could be working class and white and living somewhere in the deep South.
Right.
And, this would resonate with you.
Yeah, there are other things I would say, but like some of the same things that you described in the book are still happening.
Yeah, yeah.
In parks around the city.
Yeah.
And, and around the country.
Right.
And
and so, and I think that part of my goal was to talk about the universality of the experience. And like to see, okay, this character is a Black gay man. This character is of mixed heritage.
Yes.
This character is a white woman. This character is a politician, everything else. But there's something, even the Beth character, which admittedly she's a little flat and
one-dimensional.
Yeah. But you recognize,
purposefully, though.
Purposefully, and you recognize.
We know her.
Yeah,
she lives in my building.
Right.
She might be named Beth. I don't know.
Right. She was my first boss.
Right.
On my job.
Many of us had that first boss as an entry level. Yeah.
And you're just like sitting there like, really?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mine was named Leslie. Yeah.
I'm gonna shout out Leslie.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to. You got to let them see you. They got to see who you are. Right.
Bam. Bam.
Understood.
Let's go to our books.
Yeah. And so, okay, we're gonna shift gears.
Okay.
You being a writer, we want to talk a little bit about like your favorite books, maybe. And we're gonna go around. We're gonna ask everybody, but tell us a little bit like favorite book, favorite author.
Favorite. Can I talk about favorite books, maybe?
Sure.
There's, of course, Beloved.
Okay.
Oh.
Heavy hitter.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
Is, of course, Beloved. There is also, I will do 3 from my Holy Trinity.
Okay.
So Baldwin, Morrison is mother, Beloved. Baldwin is father, just above my head.
Yes.
That is, everybody talks about Giovani's Room.
Right.
Just above my head. Peanut and Crunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all read? Have you ever
Yes.
read?
No, I've only read Beloved.
That's a love story.
I mean, he's talking about Baldwin.
Baldwin.
And
Yeah.
just above my
Okay.
head. And just above my head.
I love Another Country.
You love Another
wow.
Country.
I love Another Country.
I think that's a very sophisticated novel.
I love Another Country.
Yeah. I love, not
see
that
that.
Just Above My Head isn't sophisticated, but they're two really
different books and different kind of themes that you're dealing with.
Very
right?
much so.
Yeah.
Okay, so Morrison, mother, Baldwin, father, and then there's Randall Keenan, who is son.
Okay.
Let the Dead Bury Their Dead. It's a book of short stories.
Awesome.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's he's the epigraph is from one of his.
Wow.
Oh.
So we're gonna try to put some of these links in the comments, in the
Absolutely.
descriptions, if you guys are interested in some. Of
I'm
these
interested
books.
in that one for sure.
Yeah.
LaDana.
Oh. So I'm going to mention 2. I'm going to mention an author. I'm going to mention a book. So one of my favorite books it was written in 1929 by Wallace Thurman, and it's called The Blacker the Berry.
Yeah.
You've read it?
Some of it, yes.
Some of
Not
it,
the full
okay.
thing, yeah.
I love that book so much because it resonated with me because I just felt that Emma Lou was me in a certain way. I understand that this is about colorism, but it was also about the Harlem Renaissance.
Yes.
And the way that he wrote it, it just put you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, you sympathize with her. Of course, you understood what she was going through as a woman in this city. I absolutely understood what she was going through, and I just feel that Emmylou is just still walking around Harlem.
Yeah.
I love that book. I really love that book.
Love that.
But the author that I wanted to mention was Tananarive Due.
Okay.
Yes, when I was a huge reader, and I want to get back to reading, I fell out of reading, and I finally figured it out.
And we talked about this.
Yeah.
As we were trying to prep for your
Because
book.
when I first moved here to New York, I was still an avid reader.
Yes.
And what happened was the iPod
Oh yeah.
and all that.
The digital
it's like
stuff.
all the digital stuff just
I used
like
to love
reading, like
carrying a book.
Like music replaced reading for me, and I hated that happened. So I'm trying to get back to it. But anyway, I love her books. I love the series about the immortals. What was it called? My Soul to Take.
Okay.
Like it was a whole series of those books about. And what I loved about them is because it was about a Black family. It also included, because my favorite genre is horror, so it also included horror. They were basically vampires, but they called them and it was like African ancient rituals that were involved.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember her. I never read her books.
Yeah.
But I remember that was
So there was like a whole
strong thing.
series of
Yeah.
those, and I didn't even finish them because, again, it started off in the 90s, but then I think the series continued until like the early 2000s when I stopped reading. So I'm going to go back and just read that whole series.
Brennan.
We'll put those in the comments too,
Yes.
or in the description. I'm going back and reading books that I have read prior, like in high school and stuff like that, and middle school, just because. And some I read on my own, just because I don't think I got them as much in the time when I should have, and they're resonating with me now in retrospect. Like I'm rereading. I think I told you guys Farenheit 451, Ray Bradbury. And it's
You're back in class.
I'm back in class.
Right?
As I was reading it again, it really is standing out to me because a lot of these dystopian books kind of set up a situation or environment where you're kind of afraid of the government. You're kind of that the government is coming down and trying to repress or suppress knowledge. And Fahrenheit 451 kind of has a different premise in that the reason why that for anybody who hasn't read it, there's in general in the future, I think the book was written in 1953, I think. But in Ray Bradbury's future, the fire department comes into people's homes and they burn books. And but when I first read it, I didn't get it. I thought they were burning books because they were trying to hide knowledge, right? But that's not really it. It's kind of it. It's more so that the whole premise, and this goes back to another. I used to read a lot of Hobbes, and I think that kind of formulated my perception of the human spirit. And I feel like Fahrenheit 451. The reason why they're burning the books is because they don't trust that people will do the right thing with the knowledge when they read the books. So it's not that the books itself are harmful.
Like a Tony Stark scenario.
It's that the people are harmful.
Yeah.
and that people cannot be trusted with knowledge. So it was for me to revisit that now, especially considering what is our current state. I find it super fascinating. Mildred, his wife, who is. Goes into the parlor, which is essentially like a virtual room, and you can commune with fake people, not real people, in scenarios. It's like they're living a virtual life, and all of the conversations that they have, she has with her friends, are about this virtual life. None of it is real.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they don't. And there's a point, I don't want to give away too much, but there's a point where Guy, who was the fireman who works for the fire department, he gets so incensed by the conversations they're having that he starts quoting poetry. Poetry that he has read in books that he is not supposed to have. And one of the guests at listening starts to get emotional about the poetry that he's reading. And it's because it's real, it's visceral, and it makes them feel something.
Yeah.
And I was moved by that in this time, because I do feel like, going to your point earlier about the phones and people not reading and people, getting away from reading, we are becoming way too self-assured in our knowledge of things and our perception of the world and the reality around us. And we are not heeding the words and experiences of those who are wise enough to document their experiences coming before us. And I feel like that's problematic. I feel like it's dangerous. I feel like a lot of what's happening in this country is because we are choosing purposely to be ignorant of the past.
I think it's a combination that they're selling us, like this is easy and fast, right? Like, but forgetting
convenient
the lessons of like why things were done in that way.
And so I think our worst impulses are being seasoned and being inspired.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a very precarious time because of that.
I agree.
I mean, I think, isn't that one of the things that Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about in The Message, right? Banning of books is a way for the book banners to restrict what happens in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a dangerous precedence, right? Like burning books, limiting knowledge, and it's purposeful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you have people focusing on screens, getting information in little bites, then things that are found in books, they're not going to have the patience or the time or the skill to
inquire,
to look through, right?
Curated messaging directed to your screen, and not for the greater good, but for your entertainment, primarily to keep you engaged so that you continue to be asleep and you continue to buy and you continue to participate without questioning.
And I work with young people who they know about their algorithm and are kind of excited about their algorithm.
They curate their algorithms.
And to me, I'm like, this is the opposite of what I think I want.
They're creating their own bubbles.
Like, I don't want an algorithm to figure out everything that I need to know about me. I want something outside of I want new knowledge, new experience, no, I don't want a curated
The problem with new knowledge and new experience is it makes you uncomfortable.
Right. That's it. Right.
But we have, we scour through. I scour through books, hours. That's a skill set, and it's being lost.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the things that I think that's ultimately one of the things that got Zelensky in trouble, right?
Yeah.
With sitting there in front of Trump, and when Zelensky was like, "Well, your comfort level is based on the fact that you're, talking about America." You're in between these two oceans.
Right.
It's like, but sooner or later, somebody's going to decide to cross the ocean.
Right.
And what will happen then?
They've already crossed it.
Right. And Trump, and you could see Trump react like, he was like, no, we can't have that thought.
Right.
Oh, yeah. We can't have, people actually think about what does that mean if someone can actually cross, someone from outside, beyond the border, beyond safety, make you feel unsafe, right?
I mean, but
that's exactly what Americans do.
But we're physically doing that with our spaces. It's like, if I'm living somewhere, I'm going to live in a space that is contained. I don't want anything outside. Everything in it I know. I don't want anything that's foreign or different or whatever. That is the kind of mindset that we are establishing both mentally, emotionally, physically, right? We are setting these parameters in terms of knowing the world. I mean, it's more than just isolationism, right?
It is.
Right? It's, yeah.
So I'm reading that and On Tyranny.
Yeah. Okay.
On Tyranny, which is something new, but it's a small book. I think actually I have it in my bag. I read it on the train. But it tells you one thing specifically, which is do not acquiesce in advance. Do not. That is what authoritarianism requires.
Oh, yeah.
Is that you acquiesce
before
they even ask you to. You just yield. Right? So, those are the two books I'm reading right now.
Okay.
Sheldon?
Favorite books. Okay, so I try to jot these things down. I used to read a lot. One of my favorite books is Love and Atomic Hour by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. as well as 100 Years of Solitude. Two of my favorite.
That is like your
favorite books.
You frequently mention that book.
But I have a lot of stuff, like a lot of different tastes. So Baldwin was one of my first, like, sort of awakening moments reading like a queer author, Black queer author. I love Toni Morrison. So Giovani's Room, I do love. It has a special place in my heart. I read it like when I was 18 and like going through a process of self-discovery or whatever. I read it. I was like, wow, this story, it's a devastating story. So those are, I think, I'll leave it there with those two. That's enough.
Okay.
I guess what we want to talk about are like maybe books you're reading now, or new books books that you've read recently, and we'll reverse the order.
That I'm reading
Now, or you talked about one of them, but something that you've read recently that you love, or
something newer. I'm sorry, guys. I'm reading a lot of political stuff, and which is not normal for me. I definitely have I like to read
You were not
for
reading
fantasy
anything
and
fun.
fiction. I'm not. But I'm reading Justice is Coming by Cenk Uygur, which is essentially a political commentary about what essentially. I mean, it was written right prior to the election, and it was kind of talking about what it means to be progressive and what it means. It's pretty much defining political stances, progressive, conservative, and kind of delineating exactly what the progressive points are. And
Call the title again.
the Justice is Coming
Justice is
by Cenk Uygur.
Okay.
And he's essentially saying that if you were to sit down and have 10 Americans around a table and talk to them about the things that are important to them, you will find that though they may not identify as progressive, the things that they want for themselves and their lives and the people around them are progressive.
That's interesting.
Healthcare, raising minimum wage, free public education, college education to a point, investing in the future in terms of clean energy, but in more than anything else, dignity. People want dignity. People want to be able to work one job. There's no reason that people should be working two jobs to pay your bills.
Yeah.
Our grandparents used to be able to go to one job. Mom used to be able to stay home if that was her choice and to be able to take care of family, raise us, go on a trip, whatever. Nobody was living fabulously, but people could have dignity. People could go. And that's his whole point, is that once you start addressing the loss of dignity for people in general right now, and since 1975, $81 trillion of wealth has gone to the 1%.
I mean, dignity.
Right? So he's talking about restoring dignity to the American people and to people in general. And to do that, you have to treat people fairly, and that's what that book is about.
I mean, and I love that because I think that is very present, especially like with the working class or whatever. But like to address dignity, you got to give people improve their material condition.
You have to, and you have
you gotta pay them.
Yeah. And you have to listen to them.
Feed them, and you gotta clothe them, and you gotta house them, and you gotta give them good quality healthcare.
The bare minimum.
So like,
no one asked to be here.
Yeah.
No one asked to be born.
Yeah.
Right. So it is only common sense.
Yeah.
That if you care about society, if you care about yourself, you can be selfish.
Right.
But understand that if you don't take care of your neighbor's coming for your stuff.
I find it remarkable right now that, there's such an outrage about like Tesla dealerships and Tesla cars, and that, some parts of the government are willing to go. And I've always found this, like, this is just how I think, is like that they are willing to protect property. Right? They're willing to criminalize people for property. Right? But they won't feed people.
Right.
Or they won't send money to people who are starving or who have no housing. I find it very interesting that you're going to criminalize people
Property
for
is
burning
valued.
down a car.
Yeah. Property is valuable.
But you won't feed people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's very telling about where we are in terms of dignity in this country.
Yeah.
That says a lot about our society.
Yes.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not really reading anything right now. However, I am interested. I want to get back to fun, romantic love stories,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So, audience,
Give you some recommendations.
Yeah, here you go.
Absolutely.
Put some recommendations of some books that we should be reading in the comments section.
Yes.
For sure.
But romance and love stories. Okay.
Romance and love stories for Dana Deep.
Yes.
I'm reading right now. I'm reading The Message.
Okay.
by Ta-Nehisi Coates. It's absolutely brilliant.
I love him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. And I'm reading. Have you heard Marlon James? I'm reading.
I have. Wait, what did?
He just wrote this series for
About
HBO,
Bob-
Get Millie Black.
Yeah, did he write the Bob Marley book?
Did he? I don't know if.
Yeah, I think he wrote this. Yeah. Yes, I have. I've read him. Yeah.
Well, I'm reading. He wrote a novel a few years back, A Brief History of Seven Killings.
Yeah, that's the book I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
That it's about
I just started-
Bob Marley's assassination attempt, kind of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
part of the book or whatever.
Because I've just started it.
I have a very interesting history with that book. I was in a book club for 5 years in my building or whatever, and that was one of the book selections.
Okay.
Yeah, very cool.
You're not going to tell us about your history with it?
No.
I have a sort of non sequitur real quick. Well,
Yeah.
we kind of touched on it.
What?
How do you feel about, and you don't have to speak to this, but how do you feel about Colombia acquiescing right now or kissing the ring?
I did not know until you told me that
Yeah.
just now.
It only happened over the last 48 hours or so. I think 48, 72 hours.
When you said that, I was just like, that's disappointing that an institution of higher learning, a place such as Columbia, they're going to, bend the knee as it is, right? I mean, I wonder, I think that they should hold themselves to a higher standard, right? Like fight the fight, go against authoritarianism. That's one side, right? But then I'm also asking myself, I mean, because we all have lived on this planet for a while. And the larger questions around grants and who's doing what work and are they on the brink of what discoveries and what is the greater good, to acquiesce right now so someone else can continue discoveries and breakthroughs and make sure they have that sort of funding. So it's two questions. I mean, I wonder what happened. What was the reason for them capitulating?
$400 million.
I mean, but they are so wealthy. They are so rich. So that's the part that's like confounding to me.
I
They have
think the $400
such a
million
large endowment.
I don't think it was the money so much. I mean, it's a lot of money, but I think it's the threat of that $400 million. There might be another. There might be another way that they attack the Columbia, and they might be, they're going to attack other universities. So I think it's
it
just
has
a
something
fear
to do
of having the power and the strength of the government coming after you for 4 years.
I mean,
at least 4 years.
It also has to do with like them kind of projecting this idea that Columbia is this bastion for like anti-Semitism actions happening, right? Mm. And because of that, they don't have the protection of their alumni, right? Or don't have as much protection from their alumni. Like they acquiesce in terms of like expelling those students, right?
Yeah.
Expelling them, stripping them of their, degrees in some cases or whatever.
But when we think about an institution like Columbia, and let's throw Harvard and Princeton and Yale and all that, those institutions are part of the fabric of American capitalism.
And white supremacy.
Right, and white supremacy, right? And so it makes you wonder if that institution cannot protect itself from something like a Trump, if it has no way of insulating itself, like what's behind their decision-making?
Absolutely. I mean, those are questions that we...
Because you would think a few, I don't know I don't know the alum, but what Columbia's, their endowment is about what, $2.5 billion or something? I'm sure there are 10 alum from Columbia with net worths of at least that much.
Right.
And could they not call the
absolutely.
president? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it just makes me really wonder, like, what forced them into making?
Well, they're saying there's some students who are feeling like physical threats and such, which I understand. There should be no physical threats. You shouldn't be harming, touching, hurting anybody. But speech is speech, and you would think if there's any place that young people should be able to speak their minds, even if the speech is abhorrent, it would be on a college campus.
Right.
It's like I don't want to minimize whatever experience people are having. And some a Facebook friend of mine posted something about Semitism running rapid on college campuses. And, I work on a college campus. It's not the typical setting for a college campus. And it's only one. So I don't know what the scope of things are around anti-Semitism, but like the way she describes it. And so she talked about Columbia specifically.
Yeah.
Okay. I live close to Columbia. I don't know. I mean,
there are people who, I know people as well who've said they experienced vile acts, and have feel threatened, and that is unacceptable.
That
should
what
not
Robin
be happening to
said. It is
anyone,
unacceptable, yes.
anywhere.
Absolutely.
You should be able to exist as yourself without feeling threat for being who you are.
I do not like this comparison of oftentimes I've read a couple of times, it's like, well, if these were black students, blah, blah, blah. And I don't like that because they're not the same thing.
Not the same thing.
Right. We don't have a hierarchy of oppression. People who are suffering suffering.
Yep.
And we should address hate. Bottom
Blanket.
line.
Right. But
is
at the point now,
is it hate? I mean, why can't it be pro something, not anti something? What they're doing.
I think some people don't see it that way.
Well, that's what I mean.
And especially when there is violence involved allegedly, or people are feeling threatened. And I don't know. I don't want to take away because if that's happening, of course it's horrible. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's been violence against Jewish students. There's been violence against Muslim students. There's been violence against black students. There's been violence, right? So none of that is acceptable.
Right.
And we should be able to say that without being targeted for saying.
And we shouldn't have to mince our words to say it, right? Like even as I'm talking, even as I'm talking now, I'm walking, I'm treading carefully. Well, why?
Yeah.
Because I'm not an anti-Semitic, right? Like I don't believe in violence, but I do understand what you were saying in terms of people having a voice, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think, but that's the whole point of being on a college campus, or at least being in an environment where you can have conversations, is because then you can once, for instance, if I say that I like cheeseburgers and that offends you, right? For whatever reason, I don't mean to minimize it, but the point I'm trying to make is that's the area where. Well, let's talk about why you're offended by cheeseburgers. Right?
I mean, it's shifting though.
That's what it should be about.
It should be about
have the discussion.
Right.
It is shifting, though, guys.
Question.
I want to let you know that it is shifting, where they are trying to strip away the ability for discourse to happen on college campuses.
And that's
it's been a movement, right? And it's not new.
Is the college campus? Is it a place for mental inquiry, intellectual inquiry, or is it a place for conditioning?
Right. I mean, for me, I grew up with the belief that was my liberation, right? Clearly, the place of my liberation can also be my oppressor, right? Because some of these places are institutions of white supremacy, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a complicated relationship, right? Like between the institution and what it provides to its students and community, right? And a part of that complication is like the founding of, and the continual funding, of these places, by alumni, the corporatization of universities and colleges, like all these things, and the government, right? Like they're playing a role in this place where I think we all assume that it's like a place for free speech and discourse and knowledge, right? And the building of knowledge.
The alum will call and say, unless this happens.
They've always done that,
right.
They've always done that. So it is free for some, right? And I think this is the point that LaDana is trying to make.
Exactly.
Right?
Thank you. That was my point.
Yeah. Yes. What am I reading?
Yeah, what are you reading?
So right now I'm reading, I'll tell you what I just read. I just read James by Percival Everett, right? It's a story of like Huckleberry Finn from the perspective of Jim, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Right. So I think it won. He's also the writer of, tell me the name of the book, American
Erasure.
Right, of Erasure, right, which was adapted into a film, American Fiction, right? I'm reading that now. One of my high school professors actually gave me that book because I was talking about it, whatever. He's like, I have a copy of it. So I'm reading that. I'm also reading a little political, American Fascist. I just started that, and it is. I'm trying to because I had to. I didn't know his name is Chris Hodges, and it really tells the story about how we are in the situation we are in now, in terms of like the things that have like shaped the United States to the position where we are in terms of our government, in terms of the people. So I just started that. It's fascinating. But
If you guys think of it, send me those links. We'll put them all in the description for you guys to read and to listen to if you like audiobooks, whatever it is. But
and then of course I got to talk about Colson Whitehead, which is one of my favorite contemporary authors. I think his books are Nickel Boys is incredible. Love that book. I also read the one Harlem Shuffle as well.
Oh, you read the Harlem Shuffle?
Yeah.
Did you read Underground?
I didn't read Underground, which is based on a television show, right?
Yeah, well, the television show.
Television show based on his,
right.
right. Yeah, I haven't read that, but I read like Nickel Boys and the Harlem Shuffle. He actually came to the Schomburg and did a small talk about Harlem Shuffle, which was awesome. He's just a really good, him and Everett. I love their writing.
so we're running out of time.
Yes.
Doug, thank you.
Thank you.
This was
Yeah.
for being
Thank
here.
all of you.
Before,
Thank you for
very
being
much
on the show.
appreciate it.
before
Yes.
we wrap,
Thank you.
questions real quick. Two for you. Where can people find you if they were looking for you?
DougJones.Atlanta on IG and Doug Jones on Facebook.
Excellent. Second question. What's next?
I'm working. My next novel is set in the lowlands of South Carolina.
Nice.
And Georgia. And it's going to involve real estate. A grandfather who gets a second chance at fatherhood because his son is no longer here, let's say. And he's left to raise his grandchild. And part of the legacy is the land that he has, which is under threat from developers.
Very nice.
Okay.
So
When's it set?
say it again.
When's it set?
I'm working that out. It's probably going to be set a little bit more contemporary, probably in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And everything else, but yeah.
Cool.
Why South Carolina?
I've been reading stories about all the things that happen in terms of Hilton Head and the Georgia Sea Islands and all those places, and how we lived there until developers decided it was prime,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
vacation land. And there were a couple of stories I've researched that is incredible what people will do to screw other people out of
Amelia Island,
land,
those places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Safalo, all those
Yeah.
places. Yeah.
Yeah, we're hearing about that more and more.
Yeah. Well, Doug, we want to thank you for being on the show.
I thank you again for the invitation.
We
You
love
gotta come
that
on and
you're
talk
here.
about the new book when you do it.
Yes.
we should tell people
Oh,
the
May
Center for
2nd?
Fiction.
Yes.
The Center
Yeah.
for Fiction, May 2nd. I will be reading there as part of their first novel, Fridays. It will be me and two other authors, and the conversation will be led by none other than T.R.E. Jones.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's awesome.
nice.
So 6:00.
So,
Be there.
yeah.
Be there.
And also make sure you go out and pick up the book,
On sale April the
Right.
22nd.
The Fantasies of Future Things
That
by
is the future things by
author Doug Jones.
Thank you.
Available at all the major bookstores
Yes.
and online, right?
Yeah.
Bye. And
You'll put it. Yeah. Let people know where they can find you.
You can find me at Dr. S. Applewhite at Blue Sky.
Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Blue
and
Sky.
and on IG. Sheldon Applewhite on IG.
Excellent. Darjack.
Dana Deet on IG.
No Blue Sky yet?
No Blue Sky yet, but I'm going.
I can't find people on Blue Sky.
I mean, I'm on it. I just
Get on it,
haven't used it. I
folks.
think I made one post. I'm Brendan Hamilton. You can find me at B Music Maker pretty much on all the socials, or Brendan Hamilton if you Google me. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in for the Quest Culture Podcast. As always, we love your questions. Please put them in the comments, and please tune in for our next episode. I'm not sure what that's going to be, but it's going to be fun. I guarantee you that.
For sure.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Until next time.
All right.
Great.
Yay.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.